Good morning. It is the 10th. Of course, I'm going to go over a little bit with coronavirus stimulus, a little bit with the stock market, of course. I'm focused on Pfizer, if you realize that by now. And I do look at a couple other stocks. If you're interested in something else, look below. If you're interested in investing and you're new, I'm going to put a link for 3 free stocks through Weeble. It's a great app that I've been using. This morning I'm drinking cream brulee from Lipton. I wish they had this everywhere, but they don't. It's hard to get. Tastes great. So this is my morning coffee until the coffee machine gets going. Meeting in the office and they said they need all the coffee for the meeting, so I was like, well, I had this. And my breakfast. That's going to be a little fishy here. Well, that's breakfast. So, anyways, the stock market started to rally on news that Pfizer has a RNA vaccine that was 90% effective. So the great thing about that is they're going to be getting approval in a couple weeks. Of course, the stock shot up as much as about 15% yesterday. But of course, like most markets, it dipped a little bit. With the news, the market did rally. It actually went up quite a few percent. The Dow ended at 2.95% up, but it did dip at the end. NASDAQ actually did decrease. It rallied a little bit, then it went down 1.1 or 53%. And the S&P 500, it went up 1.17%. It did dip at the end of the day too. So when you're looking at this, Pfizer currently is 39.20 cents. It ended up 7.69%, which in my opinion is a nice gain. And yes, there's a lot of stocks that went up more. Honestly, I don't know why it did not go even higher because of simple fact of, I'm going to go over the math here. Pfizer stated they're going to have 1.3 billion doses of the coronavirus vaccine available next year. And they're going to be available in just a couple weeks. When you do the math at $19.95, basically it's roughly around $25 billion. So that's going to be their income just in the actually that's globally, but it's going to expand, excuse me. So that's going to be their income for next year. That's not including the other business that they do. So this is going to be a windfall of cash. This is a global thing, and I'm not going to be surprised if their stock goes more. More 10 times, maybe more. Who knows what's going to happen? But I know they're a larger cap stock, and they do move a little bit slower when you're looking at mid cap or micro cap stocks. They do go quicker because there's less shares, so they seem more volatile. So we'll see what happens. I'm noticing Mad Money. Jim Cramer says sell Pfizer. It's just a little article. I didn't read it. I would think you're foolish to sell Pfizer right now. I think it's going to go way up. And that's my opinion. Keep in mind, this is for entertainment purposes only. Let me know what stocks that you invested in, because a lot of the recovery stocks have gone way up. Some of the tech stocks have gone down, and this is a general statement. So people are confident because sadly, Joe Biden had said he was going to lock the economy if he wins, and it looks like he could be winning. On regards to that, I'm looking at some information that Trump put out. They're contesting the election in a lot of different locations, mainly because they see a lot of voter fraud and the refusal to allow fair oversight. So Trump is not saying that votes should not be counted, but there were a lot of reports that I saw online where people came forward as whistleblowers who were supporting Democrats and said, well, just because you support Democrat doesn't mean you support fraud. And I want to keep in mind, I'm sure somewhere there's probably Republican fraud, but, let's not go there. I'm just explaining, what I found and that I saw in the news. And that's basically somebody came forward and said they were told to backdate ballots in one location. So that means if a ballot was received past the date, they were changing the dates to valid dates. That's illegal, of course. No poll worker counter is allowed to alter any ballots. Also, ballots that were not filled out properly. I made a video about this a couple weeks ago. And the main reason is because in a lot of locations, when they were getting the ballots, they were realized they were not filled out properly or mailed properly. If you did not fill out or mail your ballot properly, it is invalid. It's not supposed to be counted. And there were reports that poll workers were told to correct the ballots and or, make them valid. I saw another post that was online, and I believe it was a postal worker or it could have been a ballot counter, actually made a video, and he said, here, I'm going to teach you how we're supposed to count the ballots. This one has Donald Trump's name. If you see one with Trump, and he rips it up, and he said, just throw it away. We don't count those here. So I'm not saying that's done anywhere, but keep in mind, if it's just being done once, that's fraud in with that particular person. I'm not saying every person's doing it. I'm just saying that if you look for these videos, you're going to find them. It's not very difficult at all to locate them. So that's a big problem. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a video by JP Sears, and I'm going to put a link to his video. He's a comedian. He does a lot of things. I think he's a great comedian. And basically, I'm going to put a reaction to his video. So this is Monday morning. Have a laugh. And tomorrow is Veterans Day, by the way. I'm going to be making a Veterans Day video. I'm going to do it today because I have a family member's funeral and a lot of things going on as far as appointments and everything. So if I don't make the video today, I may not have time, I should say, to make one. So here's JP Sears. Check it out. It's funny. And subscribe to JP Sears. The link's going to be the second one in the description. Excuse me. The first link's going to be to get your 3 free stocks if you're interested in stock investing. And I will, over time, start posting more stocks that I feel would be beneficial for people or more information. I'm just very busy, and I only research a couple. Plus, with the opportunity I see with Pfizer, I haven't really been doing anything except watching Pfizer daily. So, excuse me. JP Sears, check it out.
Hi, the election results are finally in after a bit of a stressful period, and I'm here to clarify any confusion or uncertainty you might still have about the results. It's just been announced Joe Biden has won the election. He's the least popular candidate in U.S. history, yet has somehow received the most amount of popular vote in U.S. history. Joe Biden will definitely be your next president of the United States. Unless something happens with the lawsuits that the Trump campaign has already filed in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, and Georgia alleging fraudulent vote counting. If there was fraud in the vote count and it's discovered in the recount, then if President Trump proves to have the deciding number of votes in truth, then he'll be awarded with the election win. However, if there was fraud in voting in these states and a recount is ordered, but the fraud was in illegal ballots being dropped off and not in the actual vote count, then a recount will result in the same fraudulent vote count, and Joe Biden will be your next president. But the Trump campaign's lawsuits are unlikely to be successful because providing provable factual evidence of voting fraud would be very difficult. So recounts might not even be granted in some states. It is worth noting, though, that Georgia's Secretary of State has already ordered a recount. Georgia's 16 electoral votes that originally went to Biden could be awarded to Trump, which would not change the election results because it still wouldn't give him the 270 votes that are necessary. So Joe Biden would continue to be your next president of the U.S. Unless, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court decides in the Pennsylvania case that sits in front of it that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that allowed late arriving ballots to be counted violated the U.S. Constitution. In that case, those votes would be thrown out. And if it's enough to swing it into Trump's favor, then Pennsylvania's 20 electoral votes would be awarded to Trump. And Biden would still win the election, because those 20 votes still wouldn't be enough to give Trump the win. But they would be when combined with Georgia's 16 electoral votes if that recount lands in Trump's favor. But remember, only if highly controversial Nevada is overturned and given to Trump as well. But he wouldn't need Nevada if the wild card of Arizona that was called suspiciously early for Biden ends up going to him after all the votes are counted and recounted. Pretty straightforward, right? But of course, with today's election results being official, it doesn't mean they're certified. If the results aren't certified by the inauguration deadline in January, then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi becomes president. However, it's very unlikely that the election results won't be certified by then. But then again, with all the lawsuits being filed by the Trump campaign, not to mention any countersuits filed by the Biden campaign if any of the results are overturned, it's fair to say the election results stand a decent chance of not being certified by the deadline in January. And then Nancy Pelosi would indeed be the next president of the United States. But if that doesn't happen, when it's all said and done, after all the recounts are in, if Trump and Biden end up tied with 269 certified electoral votes each, then the newly elected House will select the next president, and the Senate will select the vice president out of the 3 leading candidates. If that were to happen, then the Democrat-controlled House would pick Joe Biden to be the next president, and the Senate's pick for vice president would likely be President Trump. Seriously. And then if President Biden were to die, then President Trump would be the next president. However, assuming Biden keeps the election win through the inauguration in January and becomes the president, then shortly after taking office, Kamala Harris becomes the next president, when Biden shockingly becomes unfit for service. You might remember Kamala Harris. In the recent election, she ran for president under the pseudonym Joe Biden. There you have it. The 2020 election is officially done. You can put your mind at ease with all this clarity. It's now safe to remember to be scared of COVID again.
Okay, so, my reaction to this video is JP Sears, even though he's a comedian, he always hits the nail right on the head, if you ask me, and a lot of people, they sometimes get offended by the things he says or does. But keep in mind, first of all, he's a comedian, but I always think he brings humor to facts. A long time ago, I used to watch the Daily News and stuff like that because I felt they were very unbiased, and Jon Stewart show, very unbiased. And then what I noticed over time is they stopped making jokes equally about the left and the right, and they just seemed to focus on one side. And actually, Trevor Noah, well, he came in later, but it was a similar thing where they just seemed to focus on one side. So when you're looking at that, I don't really agree with that, and that's why I stopped watching those shows. But JP Sears is a great comedian. He explains a lot of things. And the reason why I think it's great is because of the simple fact that he's kind of just explaining to the fact that some people think it's over, but basically what Trump said and their team is they're pursuing legal action. In one of the areas, I also saw that basically was on the news that Trump's team said they wanted fair oversight, and in Philadelphia, they were refusing to let people watch the poll watchers and poll counters, I should say. If they're not doing anything wrong, like altering ballots or fixing them or changing them or destroying ones they don't like or adding ones, why would there be any problem with any oversight? Keep in mind the people watching would just be making sure that they're doing their job right and make sure they're not doing anything illegal. And the one thing that I wanted to mention, I think in the future, they need to change the election process. They should make sure there's a fair number of Republicans, Democrats, and also independent candidates. These people can be seeked out if they don't get them because, they advertise for poll workers or they have people who constantly come and do it. But if there's not equal representation at the polls while voting's being done and while counting's being done, then you have a greater chance of, what is potentially happening. And I say potentially because even though they're bringing this to light, even though I see a lot of evidence, it's not been 100% proven yet. But in the end, my honest opinion is it will be proven that there was massive voter fraud, and that will change the results of the election. Well, this is Pete with the Small Business Resource Center. If you want those 3 free stocks, the first link, JP Sears, his channel is going to be the second link. And if you have any questions, comment below, smash a like button, subscribe to my channel, and have a great day.